to Edison Open House Global Healthcare 2021. In this session, we're looking at the work of Bioporto. It's a Danish in vitro diagnostics company which specializes in early insight and diagnosis of important clinical conditions. With me is their Chief Executive Officer, Peter Eriksen. Peter, welcome.
Thank you very much. A pleasure.
Now, Bioporto focuses particularly on AKI, also known as acute kidney injury. Just to give us the context for this conversation, tell us a bit more about AKI.
AKI is a disease where, when you talk about it with people, they're saying, yeah, it's important, but how important is it really? And I do think that one of the things that we have recognized in our search of, if you're looking at what everybody knows, they know cardiovascular disease and cancer. That's the two biggest areas of death in the world today. And surprisingly, if you're looking at the numbers, kidney failures caused by kidney injury is the third largest cause of death in hospitals today. And I do think that one of the efforts that we are trying to do is trying to have a faster diagnostic, so you are looking a lot earlier on people with kidney problems. Because currently, we all know who have worked in the kidney areas, there is two options of treatment when you have lost most of your functionality in your kidneys. It's either transplant or it's dialysis for the rest of your life. And we have worked at this area for the last 10 years. And now we're in the process of trying to get it through the system of clearance in the FDA. But I think it's a very important focus that we're going to have here, is that we see the number of cases of AKI expanding a lot. For example, I can quote some of the numbers that I know, that if you're in an ICU in US, every 4 adults is going to have AKI during a stay in the ICU. If you look at pediatric, it's every 5 of the people which is having damage to the kidneys. So it's a really tremendous disease areas which have been underestimated, undervalued for many years. And if you just look at it and have been doctor in this society, everybody knows serum creatinine, if have been there the last 60 years. And not a lot of new development have occurred. So we do believe that what we have is going to make a significant change to the whole paradigm of treating people with kidney injuries.
So it's important to say that this occurs not necessarily in people who've come into hospital with a specific kidney problem. This occurs to many different sorts of patients who've come into hospital, after serious trauma, all sorts of things. And the other thing to say about it is that it's very insidious in its onset. There's no particular symptoms, and the tests that there are blood tests which take quite a while to come back. And so somebody's condition may have really deteriorated so much by the time that you actually realize that there's a problem, that you can't do much. So now tell me how Bioporto is trying to change that.
Yeah, we have worked on a diagnostic device where we are looking at the release of protein from something called the neutrophil cells. And the alarm system there is happening 2 hours after you start to have a damage to your kidneys. And people who have worked with serum creatinine know that it's a functional damage, and thereby you are getting results between 48 and 72 hours after anything have occurred. We do believe that we, with a day-to-day diagnostic, will catch people which are getting into the damage of their kidneys a lot faster. We believe that up to 2 days faster than what you're looking into today. And everybody in the environment of nephrology is saying, if we just can catch it before there is a window of opportunity where you can do something. And if you can do something very fast, we see a lot of the damage to the kidneys in our trials is caused by toxicity. And the toxicity because people are getting different kind of medications with the kidneys cannot absorb in some patients. And thereby, if you had our diagnostic test, you can very fast see if there's something wrong. You can change the classification of drugs that they're getting. You can also look into, are you giving the dose a smaller dose, still having the same impact as it should have for the patient, but limiting the damaging effect on the kidneys. We also see in connection with surgeries, I think we have just made a test with Massachusetts General in cardiovascular surgery. Approximately 30% of the patients after surgery is having somewhat of a damage to the kidneys. And today, they will have it 3 to 4 days later, the results. If you're using our NGAL, as it's called, test, then you'll see it 2 hours after surgery. And that is making the world of difference, because if it could be as simple as you have to look at the fluid in the body after surgery. We all know after cardiovascular surgeons that they would like to give a lot of diuretics. And sometimes they're forgetting to normalize the fluid balance in the body. With an NGAL test, that will be a warning system. So we do believe that it will give a lot of very fast results to the people, and thereby either avoid the damage to the kidneys, or in worst case, limit the effect of the damage to the kidneys. And I think that's one of the real advantages that we are having, because today with serum creatinine and people who have worked with it, you're getting it too late in the procedure. I'm always saying you already have a reduced function of your kidney when you're starting to have a serum creatinine results. You don't have that with our test. I call it more a damage marker than a functional marker.
So one of the other advantages, as I understand it, is that your test can be done on site. It doesn't have to be sent away to a lab in the way that serum creatinine tests have to be, so that you can produce a result, pretty much as you say, within that 2-hour time window, which is critical diagnostic information.
Yeah, we of course also have one who can be run in the laboratory on the automated system, so if that's what they need. But we also have a bedside test where they can get the results, and it really doesn't matter if it's urine or blood. And 10 minutes later, you're getting a warning signal. Of course, the one that you're doing in the laboratory is very quantitative. If you look at the bedside test, it's either telling if you have it over 50 nanogram per milliliter, 150 or 300. It's a simpler thing, but you can get it within 10 minutes.
How big is the acute kidney injury market? I mean, you gave us a sense there, 1 in 5 adults in hospital, 1 in 4 children. I mean, those are big numbers. What's the size and how's it segmented?
Yeah, we have tried to look at, first of all, trying to get some indications about how many serum creatinines are used worldwide. And I was surprised the first time I saw the number, because in US alone, they're using close to 1 billion tests of serum creatinine yearly. I'm not having the same ambitions for what we are going to target. I do believe that if we are looking worldwide, then we are looking at 250 million yearly tests. But again, seen from our company standpoint, the test is costing around $20. You have a market of 250 million yearly tests. That's a $5 billion market potential. So that's a great potential. And we do also hope that there will be a lot of other partners, because I do believe that we will come with some part of the solution, and I hope that getting earlier results maybe also can develop into other pharmacology treatments, and we'll learn a lot more about AKI, so we are helping the disease more than just diagnosing it faster.
Indeed. So can you describe for us, you've begun to talk about the way that you're going to commercialize this, but describe for us a bit more detail, both the clinical and the commercialization strategy.
The clinical, we are currently running a clinical trial, which we are going to submit here the first half of this year to the FDA. And as soon as we have done that, then we are going to launch it, seen from a clinical perspective. And the key thing here is that we already have partners like Siemens and Roche and others, which are going to help us distribute both the bedside test, but also the laboratory test, because we will, as a small Danish company, of course not have the capabilities short term to provide all these tests to the market. So that's some agreements I made with these big companies last year. So they're ready to go. And of course, we are going to build our own organizations, which is going to help. But we are also going to put a lot of focus on having medical liaisons, educating the doctors and the hospitals on how to use, because we are also fully aware of that we are going to change the paradigm, because a lot of the hospitals, doctors are used to using serum creatinine. And I do think that by getting faster results, and you can repeat them, because one of the key thing also here is, yeah, you're getting results 2 hours after damage. But probably the key things when you're doing an intervention, 2 hours later, you can see, did it work or didn't it? And again, you cannot do that with serum creatinine. So I do sincerely believe that we can do something which is going to change the things, but it requires that we are going out educating. We are already now doing grand rounds in US, having our advisory board that's primarily US doctors helping us, training people, educating people on how to use NGAL and how to use it in your practice when you're getting it into the hospital.
What sort of hurdles do you expect in getting this to market?
I think that the hurdle is always when you're coming with a new product that, in fact, one of my older key opinion leaders over 60 told me that I'm probably going to be the biggest problem when you have to sell it to me, because I've been used to using serum creatinine for the last 40 years. But I think education is going to be the biggest hurdle. I think the pricing that we have set of $20 per test is very reasonable. So I don't think that's the issue. I think adoption, getting the old people to do new ways, that's probably the biggest hurdle that we're going to meet.
Yes, and you want people to be more mindful of the condition itself, because I suspect that serum creatinine is very frequently ordered and then nobody looks at it or the results until they suddenly think, oh, we better look at that. But actually, your test makes people much, much more aware of this problem, which, as you say, is growing considerably. Once you get pediatric approval, how long before you are able to get the adult approval?
I don't know how long. I can tell you the process that will move forward. First of all, we are doing the pediatric as a de novo. That means that the pediatric is going to be the device that we're going to compare with on the adults. So a very simpler clearance process in US. We will start already, we already have started to do the analytical trials on the adults. So as soon as we get or submit for the pediatric, we're going to start looking at the adults, and hopefully it's going to be relatively fast. One of the things that I'm trying to avoid right now with the pandemic is guessing on how long is a clinical trial going to take. because right now, if it's not COVID related, then you do have an issue. You're going to not have a lot of people enrolled.
Are there any other programs outside your NGAL test that you're developing?
Yeah, we are currently in the area of the COVID-19 testing, a diagnostic test at UC Davis in US. It's a test a little slightly different from the other antigen tests out there, where they're looking at the nuclear capsid. We're looking at the spike protein. And the bench test that we have done in-house is looking very promising. So we are really looking forward what is happening in the near future here at UC Davis, if we are seeing a similar good results as a COVID testing. So that's one thing we have. Then we are doing we have a thrombomoline test where we're using that for sepsis, where we're doing some tests at a Danish hospital called Rigshospitalet. And that's also promising. So I do think that we have other things in our backpack, but our main focus is that we are focusing on the kidneys, because we do believe the medical need is substantial.
How much cash runway do you have, and what are your plans for funding the company in the longer term?
If we are looking at it, we have cash to first half of 2022. So we have been raising cash every year. So this is the first year where we are not going to focus on getting investors into the company. There's no doubt that we are evaluating. We are currently listed at NASDAQ in Copenhagen. Of course, we are looking at, are we going to do at some point a dual listing also at the main exchange in NASDAQ in New York?
2020 has been a particularly bad year in many different ways because of COVID. What are your feelings about 2021? What are you looking forward to, and are you optimistic about the year ahead?
What I'm looking forward to, I was used to going to US 15 times a year. I was in US 2 times last year. Of course, that's not a purpose in itself. I do think that hope that we will get back to a new normal, and I think it is going to be a new normal. I hope that the hospital sector especially is getting rid of the pressure from COVID, so we can do a lot more testing and getting new products out, being tested and evaluated by professionals as fast as possible. That is my key wish for 2021. And I hope it will be probably after summer of 2021. I don't have a lot of expectations to the first half year of this year. I think we have to get to around 50 to 60% vaccinations before we are seeing the sun in the front.
Peter Eriksen, it's been a pleasure talking to you. Thank you so much.
Thank you.